Good morning. Welcome to the Casey and Zoe thing. I'm Casey
I'm
Kitsaris.
Zoe Katara.
Yes, and we're here and we're going to be chatting, just chatting for a bit, about cults as they relate to, the world and also to this Tiger King spinoff. Because last night,
Yes.
Zoe and I watched the first episode of Tiger King, the Doc Antle story. Which I didn't know anything about. I just saw it on the Netflix thing, and I was like, "There's another Tiger King thing," because we watched the season 2, and it was fine. You know, it was okay, but not as good as season 1. They're not as interesting.
Yeah.
Because the whole it's kind of interesting. The whole Carol's husband and I won't say anything, but Carol's husband is
into a
not
true
as
crime
interesting
story more than anything.
more than a haha, look at all these funny characters and Tigers story.
Right.
And so, I guess there's this other spinoff, the Doc Antle story, that no one seems to really be talking much about and or isn't interested in.
Hi, Mom.
Hey, good morning. Good morning, Elise. But yeah, the Doc Antle story, focusing on one of the characters of the Tiger King supporting cast, Doc Antle, and his insane tiger cult theme park.
You know, I thought he was the most interesting of the three when the original
first
series
series
came out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought he was very interesting, and he seemed to have the most successful cult of the three of
Well,
them.
yeah, and they sort of go into that in this one.
Yeah,
How his cult was like the fancy one.
Yeah, the fancy cult, and
Because they were all cults, all three of them.
they were all cults, but Joe's cult was like the dive cult.
The everyman's cult.
The everyman's cult. And Doc Antle's was like the fancy, traditional, you're all my wives kind of cult.
Yeah. Everybody gets
And,
a boob job.
Yes, everybody gets a boob job for free. What a prize. And then Joe did all marry a bunch of his employees too, but only like 3. Like he married them one at a time. It was like a little more, a little more conservative cult leading.
And the thing with Joe was that they were actually supposed to be in a polyamorous relationship. Whereas Doc Antle was just had a harem.
Just had a harem.
Yeah.
As they say. And Carol's cult is just like a funny it's like a Disneyland cult.
I don't hate Carol Baskin that much.
Yeah, she's fine. She's a goofball.
Yeah, but cults.
Cults. Well, yeah, so we're watching the show, and it got us chatting last night just about cults in general. I've always been super fascinated with cults as a topic and a phenomenon. And and we've had, and I feel like part of our relation to cults, or at least for me, I'll say, is I think I relate to a lot of the people who get really deep in cults, because I have always felt, sort of, had those feelings of being out of place and where do I belong and all that kind of cliche bullshit. But and also I've had a lot of experience with, specifically Scientology directly. Because a few of my closest friends grew up in Scientologist families, and the thing about Scientology, I'm so into the history and all the wacky stories.
Oh yeah, it's very fascinating.
Horrific things, and the infiltrating the government and the IRS and all the wild shit they've done. I believe the biggest infiltration of the U.S. government in history, the biggest espionage. People being
was Scientology.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I think it was it Operation Snow White, or it was one of those operations they had, and somehow that wasn't in my U.S. history textbook in school. I don't know how they missed it.
That's crazy.
But and so, but all the Scientologists I know personally are just the sweetest people. I love them all. They're all very kind and smart and friendly and passionate about helping other people and so we're gonna be talking about all this stuff, but I think really we're not here to belittle anyone who's part of any group.
No, I mean, in everyone's defense, Landmark is considered pretty culty, and we have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, we have a lot to say about. Yeah, we'll talk about that as well. Yes, because we took a number of courses at Landmark Worldwide.
Oh yeah.
Landmark Education. What do they call themselves? Landmark Worldwide now, right? Or Landmark Education?
Yeah.
Whatever.
Landmark something.
Landmark.
With a little like check mark.
Yeah, we did a few courses there that did amazing things for us,
Yeah.
and also we had some criticisms, some reservations, some constructive critiques.
Depending on what said cult or non-cult offers.
Well, because the thing about cults is, I mean, the big philosophical question I think with cults is, what is a cult? What makes a cult a cult? And obviously, cult as a notion and a concept is at the root of all culture. Mm-hmm. To some extent, we are all living in a cult of humanity. Simply by being born humans and enculturated into the current status quo. And I've often thought that perhaps the, hey, we got a good morning from Donor Gina.
What's up, Greg?
What's up, Greg? That little morning emote's lovely. That's Kappa, right? I'm learning about Kappa.
No, that's Greg's face.
Oh, that's Greg's face.
I think. No.
Oh,
is it?
Oh, it is. Oh, I think it might.
That looks like Greg's face. It's his face. Okay.
Good. I won't. Now I'm going to think you're Kappa every time. Now I don't even know what Kappa is. I don't know. God. But what talk about? Cults. Oh yeah, I've often thought that perhaps the solution to a lot of our current, cultural tension and division of the world and the people and the war and the conflict is like maybe we need a nice healthy cult for everybody because we're already in one.
Yeah.
We can't. It's sort of like unavoidable to some extent. And of course, that kind of cult I'm speaking about is sort of distinct from also what I think most people tend to think of when they hear the word cult, which is the the special man at the top and everyone worships him and gives them all their money and those are definitely, in our view, I think we can say bad. We don't.
Yes.
It's bad. And that was something when we were taking courses at Landmark. Because a lot of people think Landmark is a cult. We don't think of it as a cult in that sense because they don't have the grand leader.
Also, it's super easy to leave.
It's super
easy. Well, it's super easy to leave if you are set on leaving.
And if you have self-confidence.
If you have enough self-confidence to leave. But
and that's kind of one of the problems.
It's sort of like when you try to cancel a subscription and they email you 15 times and they're like, are you sure?
Yes, but we can say from being inside, they're like, it's nice at Landmark they have a rule of like they won't call you more than twice without you coming back to them or something. Like they won't hound you, but they will like check in a couple times. And that was one of our criticisms is sometimes it's intentionally or not, they would end up kind of leveraging people's low self-esteem or low self-confidence into getting them to sign up. Again, I think generally with good intentions of like, hey, we want you to come and learn our methods and live a happier life and what have you.
Yeah.
A more powerful, empowered, right?
Yeah.
An integral life. There's a lot of that's the other thing you should know about Landmarks is very, very language based. There's a lot of
that's part of what makes it a little culty is the jargon.
It can get a little newspeak-y, and that's definitely a lot of my friends were super uncomfortable with it because of that. And I do think in the context of the courses, it was more about, getting very specific about language so you could speak to very specific concepts from a very specific perspective. Is that the Kappa? There's Kappa. There's our sweet Kappa. Thank you for the quick tutorial on Kappa. I'm going to get this. I'm going to memorize Kappa's face. Hello, Kappa. Oh, I'm going to know you forever now. So yeah, and it was very weird, certainly for me. And to give you a little background on how we got into Landmark, Zoe was invited by a friend to attend. They do these, introductions, or you can go to a sort of like the graduation ceremony for someone else.
It's not a graduation.
It's not a graduate, but that's like the closest thing I can compare.
I mean, that's what they call it, though. That's what they advertise.
Don't they call it completion night?
Perhaps no. Well, I was told it was graduation.
Okay.
At least when I went.
I feel like when I was told like it's not a graduation, it's a completion night. But then everyone would just call it graduation.
Come to my graduation.
Because nobody wants to text all their friends and family and say, "Come to my completion night."
But yeah, I was invited along with a couple other people to someone's graduation, and I got hooked right away because I was in a pretty low point in my life, which is how they get you.
Yeah, and you did the initial course.
I did the initial course, which I didn't fully pay for. The girl who invited me actually paid for some of it, which was very cool of her.
Yeah.
I did the initial course, and then that was it. Oh, no, but you know what? I did do a seminar. I did do...
right, yeah, you did the 10-part.
Yeah, I did do a seminar. A 10-week seminar.
The initial course is called the Landmark Forum. It's a 3-day thing, and then one night, the completion night.
Yeah.
And it's basically just a bunch of people sit in a room, like 100+ people. There's a forum leader who leads the conversation, and there's microphones. You can go up and talk, and everybody shares a bunch of stuff, and the leader person shares a bunch of concepts, and through all the discussion of the concepts and the sharing the space with other people and connecting with all these other people, this disparate, array of all different kinds of people, something happens, and you get, like at least our experience was, it was a lot like taking shrooms, really.
No, definitely.
That's the closest thing I would compare it to, of just that it's sort of, the experience brings you, or brings most people, it seems, to a sort of equilibrium, where you are very just present and in the moment and aware of how silly everything is. Right? Is that kind of me? How did you feel?
It was actually almost exactly how I felt after I took shrooms once. I remember, like, I have never done anything illegal. Took shrooms.
Yeah,
once,
it's a joke.
It's a joke.
Joke shrooms.
But
and had a joke trip.
I took joke shrooms and had a joke trip, and I remember I woke up the next day and I was like vegan for 3 weeks because I was like, I never want to put anything ugly in my body ever again. Yeah. And I was sobbing about how I use my phone too much. It was a very similar feeling where I was like, I never want to hurt myself ever again.
Yeah, yeah.
And, it lasts for a little while.
Oh yeah, well, and it all depends, and and I think depending on how much. Well, the cool thing about the Landmark Forum for me, compared to the joke shrooms, was that it was a little more, because it was so rooted in conversation and language, it was easier to hang on to. I mean, I apply all kinds of stuff I learned in the Landmark Forum and other courses to my life all the time, and it's very helpful. Yeah. And while I am not a fan of the way that a lot of people at Landmark can be very... tenacious, very adamant about just do it. Why don't you just do it? You can just do it. Don't do it. Well, why would you do that? It's an excuse to not do it. I do still think if anyone ever asks me, should I go try out the Landmark Forum? I would say yes, absolutely. I think it would be only a good thing if every human had that experience. And it's still.
Didn't they say like 1 in 10 people in New Zealand have done the Landmark
Forum?
And that's why New Zealand is like that.
Landmark is the biggest in New Zealand that it isn't anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
Hugely popular there.
Very popular.
Also really big in New York, apparently. Getting like bigger than LA. That's what I was hearing while I was there. That like the New York center was happening, because they've got centers all over the world, and
I feel like because people in New York are kind of miserable.
Yeah, sure.
I'm from New York, I can say that.
Yeah. And to give you some background on Landmark, it started as a thing called EST in the 70s. I don't remember what it stands for. EST, exceptional super teaching. That was started by this guy Werner Erhard, and it was very popular with the seeker types of the time. Yeah, it's not Eastern Standard Time. But it was also known for being kind of weird, and and one of the big things that everyone would talk about is like, you'd show up. Oh, Erhard Seminars training. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And you'd show up, and like the first thing that the person leading the session would say is like, "You're all assholes. You're all a bunch of assholes."
Sounds like.
And it's okay, you're assholes.
Sounds like mature.
And like it's a similar notion in Landmark, but they don't like just call the whole room of people assholes. Like they've sort of refined. And so something happened. Like Est went in one direction, and then a few people from Est like purchase the rights
Yeah.
to the methodology Werner Erhard had developed, and then started this new thing called Landmark. And fun fact, Est was also one of the inspirations for NXIVM. If you're familiar with the NXIVM cult,
Well, are they connected?
they are, yeah. Well, not connected, but related, because basically, and if you don't know the NXIVM cult, check out those documentaries. Like if you're a fan of documentaries and documentary series, you already know about all the cults.
Yeah.
Cults are very hot right now.
Cults are the thing right now, yeah.
Everyone's making docs about cults. But if you don't know, NXIVM was a big cult where they did horrible stuff, especially to women, and women were branded and emotionally broken down and tortured and all that horrible stuff that's the bad cults tend to do.
Yes.
And so NXIVM, the guy Keith Raniere, that little weirdo. Keith, ripped off a bunch of stuff to put into NXIVM, and one of the things he took was apparently the S training, and that's why a lot of the course, like if you watch the NXIVM documentary and you've done courses at Landmark, you'll see a lot of crossover in terms of some of the concepts being taught, because all the cults they're always lifting a bunch of stuff from other belief systems.
Well, yeah, I mean, because there are a specific set of manipulation tactics that work on the masses.
Yeah, that work on human beings.
Because humans are not that interesting.
Okay, and Greg is in Texas and has never heard of Landmark.
So the thing about Landmark is it's completely reliant on word of mouth.
They do not advertise.
They do not,
which I like.
Right, but the thing is, they do advertise with their completion ceremony.
Yeah, right,
it's just a night of advertisement.
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with me completing the course, and everything to do with us selling the course to you.
I don't know. I'd say there is.
That's how I received it.
Fair enough. God, and I do think for me, definitely there was an element of a feeling of completion, and like you feel at a graduation, and to share it with people.
See, I've always thought graduations were like funerals. Like, it's not for me.
Interesting.
Like, it's for you guys. I finished. I'm done.
You mean like it's for the people in the audience?
It's for the people in the audience more than the people in the chairs.
Yeah, okay,
like, you're handing me my degree.
No, now that you put it like that, I will say, yes, I agree that it is more for that than the other thing. And I definitely got something out of the completion night and the experience and a sense of completion.
Oh, totally. And I think at the time I did too, but looking back I feel a little differently. But that is their only form of advertisement for Landmark. Everything else has to be word of mouth. You have to tell your friends about Landmark. They have no advertisement anywhere. So unless you know someone who's done Landmark, you've never heard of it. And if you look stuff up online, there isn't a lot. Like, they have their website, I think.
They have their website. I remember for a while they were offering a virtual forum.
Ooh, for COVID?
Where you could get before then.
Whoa.
But it wasn't like a full forum. It was like a taste.
Got it.
It was like it wasn't a virtual forum. It was a virtual introduction to the forum.
Got it.
Yeah. But anyway, so that all that to say that we kind of had some experience with an organization that is often called a cult and definitely has some culty attributes to it. And I did their full curriculum, 3 courses. I did the 10-part thing.
Yeah, you landmarked way harder
than I did. I landmarked way harder than Zoe. And then I got up to their like higher level course. And that's where for me like things got a little too intense. And not like there wasn't anything like creepy. It wasn't like suddenly they're like, all right, well,
now we touch each other.
Now we all get naked and take out your sacrificial blades. It was like that, thankfully. And I was very afraid it would be something like that. Like I didn't want to go up to the higher course because I'm like, it's going to get weird. And the truth is, it doesn't really get weird so much as it just gets very like just adamantly all about getting more people involved, which again can come from a good place of like you want people to come get involved because you got something good out of it. You want to spread the love, spread the, the whatever.
Right. Yeah, when I do something good and great, I'm like, everyone should be doing this good and great thing.
Right. It's a very natural thing, and I think comes from a good-hearted place. If you wanna share what you got, and I'm all about sharing what I got in life in general. And it can get a little extreme. And you can end up, and the real problem is that if your goal is to have people engage with this thing and get something positive out of it, well, by going so hard and aggressive on them, you just end up making them not want to do it.
Yeah.
You fail at your goal. So I remember I had a conversation with a friend at Landmark where we were talking about this dynamic, and he spoke to it as a lack of grace. And I think that was a good way to verbalize it.
A dynamic of
the dynamic of how of going too hard on people.
Yes, okay.
That what was missing from that
grace.
was grace. You know, to just be like, oh, because that's my thing is like when I did the Landmark Forum, the first class, I wanted to tell people about it, but my attitude was just like, oh yeah, it was so cool, and like you should check it out if you want. And if they were like, yeah, not really for me, I'd be like, yeah, okay, cool. Like that was
and then you'd get in trouble.
And that was my issue with it, was that then like it started to become this thing where yeah, you'd get in trouble. You go back and they'd be like, so who did you invite? Who did you enroll? Because that's one of their terms, is enrolling people, which means like getting someone into something, you know, getting someone excited and passionate and wanting to be involved with something.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, yeah, well, you know, I talked to some friends and they said like it wasn't really their thing. And I was like, okay. And they were like, oh, well, why did you resign? Like, why were you so resigned from your possibilities? Why your commitments, you know? And that's when I started to get like, no, I'm not interested in spending every day trying to convince people to go to the Landmark Forum. That's not how I want to live my life. And so I left. I ran away from the course.
You did.
Because you know, part of the course too is you have coaches. And I loathed my coach.
I didn't know you hated it. Was this for ILP?
Yeah, well, it was.
So ILP is like the higher level.
ILP stands for the Introduction Leaders Program, and it's supposed to train you to be a leader of introductions. But you don't have to. Like, it's not about that, though, is what they like to say. It's like, it's not, you know, like, because lots of people who do it, they don't become introduction leaders. They just apply the tools to other parts of their life.
Right.
But really,
just like my philosophy degree.
Yeah. But the intention of the course, and they'll even say that the intention is to get people to be introduction leaders. And so I actually had two coaches. The first coach I had, I loved. She was so great, and we totally clicked, and I had all kinds of awesome breakthroughs working with her. And then they switched coaches on a bunch of people, switched groups for no clear reason. That was also very strange. And they wouldn't tell us why. They're like, you can't know why because you'll like make something out of it. You'll like make it mean something.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, all right, I'll try this new coach. And then she was so not good, and so one night in the course, it was literally and to give it again some more context. Generally, the courses are very conversational, like the classes. Which I love. It's very much about a bunch of people in a room.
Yeah, I mean, the whole reason why it works is because you're learning from other people.
Yes.
Like, you're not just being lectured.
Right, exactly. It is a very interactive group experience, which is really cool. And just interacting with so many different kinds of people is great and opens your mind up to new perspectives and all these things. And then in ILP, it got to the point where, like, there was a night where it was just scheduling introductions to the forum, like 3 hours of just like, all right, who's next, and when are you doing your next introduction, and who will be there, and how many people will you have there? And I was like, oh my god, this is not the thing I like anymore. And I knew that if I like stood up and said, hey everybody, I'm gonna leave now, that there would be a lot of objections, lot of resistance, that they would not want me to walk out. So instead of announcing it, I just did it. I just fucking left.
I'm a huge fan of leaving responsibilities this way.
Because I was fed up. And well, that's the whole thing. It's like, you know, So I walked out and...
you Irish goodbye the Landmark Forum.
Yeah, and then, you know, and they like wanted me to come back a bit and blah, blah, blah. And then I moved on. And, you know, and again, like I said, I still use a lot of these methodologies. I'm not, you know, I might go do the forum again someday to refresh that. You know,
I thought about that.
Like, neither of us are anti-Landmark by any means. And we're also not.
Is it a little bit of a cult?
A little culty sometimes.
A little culty.
And the point they make that I think is a fair one is that what distinguishes them from a lot of, you know, groups like Scientology, for example, is that they don't break up families. That's a good thing.
That's big.
They bring families together big time. Like, that's one of the biggest, you know, outcomes of people going to their initial course is they end up, like, reconnecting with old family members who they'd lost touch with, you know, developing deeper connections with their parents, you know, becoming more... Like the forum is a lot of it is about forgiving your parents.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So little story. We had this was when I was like deep in the Landmark forum. Greg, I'm gonna look up Navs in a second.
Yeah.
We were pretty deep in the forum, and they were doing an assignment where you had to write a letter to someone, like forgiving them for something or whatever. And I am very gifted in prose, and so I wrote a very beautiful letter to my now deceased birth mother, basically about how I was like, you're at fault for all of my stress, and I just can't stand anything, and I never loved you, and blah blah. Beautiful poem. And I went up in front of everyone and read it because I just needed everyone to know how amazing I was. Yeah, and the guy stopped me and he said, "You didn't do the assignment." And I said, "Excuse me."
Do you hear these pros?
I was like, I'm handing in A+ work right here. He's like, "You didn't do the assignment. You didn't forgive anyone." And being so embarrassed in front of everyone, I like wrote this bullshit letter. I was like, "I forgive you," and I ended up actually moving toward forgiveness. It was like incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
Because someone like told me to stop being a narcissist and do something nice.
Yeah, I had a similar thing in the forum where I wrote a letter to my deceased dad, my biological dad. I have 2 dads. That's some more context.
I have 2 moms. He has 2 dads.
Yeah, there's another reason why we relate to each other and to cults. Is because our parenting was a bit goofy, a bit all over the place, and so I wrote a letter to my deceased biological dad, just very stream of consciousness, and something I just, and I have a lot of, or had, I don't really know, it's just nice, thanks to partly to Landmark, but I used to have a lot of resentments for my biological dad, and for the mistakes he made and the things I didn't like, and in writing this letter, I was going very, just again, stream of consciousness from the heart, and I was saying it was tough sometimes, and I understand, like, you're a human being doing your best. There's no manual to be a parent, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And then the end, was like, okay, well, thanks for reading or whatever, like, and like, I love you. And then I wrote, I miss you, which I had never thought, I never consciously thought before.
Oh, so you just wrote that stream of consciousness.
I just wrote that stream of consciousness, and it was like right at the end of the letter, it came out, I miss you. And I was like, oh, right. Like, I do. I fucking miss my bio dad. Like, I miss being able to, like, go to a movie with him and have a conversation and whatever. And I truly was not connected to that before I did the forum. I was like, I don't miss that fucking guy. Drove me crazy, like, because I ran away from his house when I was 19, I think. Because I was living with my mom till I was 18. I ran away from her house. At 18 when I graduated high school, and then I was with my bio dad for a little bit, and then I ran away from his place because he was driving me nuts. So I was very much not in my world, the idea that I could miss someone who I ran away from, and yet I do, and so that's just an example of, like, the forum was very effective in provoking the discovery of stuff in myself that I did not see before then. So what's this NAVS group? Did you look it up?
Yeah, I did look it up. So it's
our cousin Greg brought up, he was part of a similar group or similar group.
It's definitely Christian. Landmark, is non-denominational, but at the same time, there is some, religious influence in the way that we are spoken to in Landmark.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's not denominational, but it is, and it's definitely not theistic or atheistic.
No.
It sort of walks the line where, like, God is very welcome there as a concept, but they're never going to point to God as a justification for anything, or like, there's just never any, like, because God says so.
Yeah.
Which is the worst. But yeah, they're very open to God. And speaking of that, I mean, you identify as atheist, right?
Me?
Do you?
Yeah,
or a little
I'm
on the
a little
fence?
on the agnostic side.
Agnostic, cool.
Yeah, I mean, I have a difficulty saying atheist just because I know I was raised in a household where, hi, Mom and Dad, I was raised in a household where they were like, Christians, bleh! Like, mostly on my dad's side. And I just, and then at the same time, the other half of my family was like, if you don't repent for Jesus every 10 minutes, you're gonna burn in hell. So it was a very weird, like, juxtaposition. So I know my mom identifies as more agnostic than atheist. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't have any answers. I know. I just, so why would I say, like, I have no belief? Because it's not. I guess I don't have any belief, but I don't know.
But you don't presume. Yeah. You don't presume to know. I think there's definitely a fair amount of agnosticism in my space, and I do believe in God, my idea of God, and it's a very specific idea that does not really align with. I mean, I have a very, I guess, if it aligns with any religion, it's a very like Eastern kind of Buddhist. Yeah. Perception of God as just the force behind all things existing, and to me, God is not like a humanoid entity. No. It's not a giant daddy in the sky, or like a guy with an eagle head or something. I love all the. I'm a big fan of a lot of gods that people have come up with, especially Camus is one of my faves. The god of wine and parties and jokes. Love that guy. I pray to him all the time. No. So we're a little distinct on that, but I feel like both of us are pretty much just open-minded. Yeah. When it comes to that,
I have such a hang up on like a certain level of spirituality in white people who are not raised in spiritual settings. I think it like sometimes crosses a line of that like pseudo spiritual something. So it's like very difficult to call myself spiritual, but I do also have like a distinct feeling of like life force and all that exists. Yeah. Which goes a little bit more toward like Eastern religion.
Well, and that's part of why because I didn't always believe in God. I didn't say I believed in God, like I definitely had a period where I if you asked me very directly, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm kind of an atheist, or the thing I would sometimes say that I didn't like saying was I believe in the universe, and it was trying to get at something that I do believe, but basically on one of my joke shroom trips that definitely didn't happen as a joke, I realized on that trip I was like, I'm being like a semantic dickhead. Like, why am I saying like no, I don't believe in God. I believe in the universe. Yeah. Like it's God. You're saying God.
It's the same word.
Like the word God is a. I mean, all words. Are meant to be representative, emblematic of a real thing. Yeah. And when humans use the word God, generally they're referring to the thing that I'm feeling and thinking of. And why just because I'm uncomfortable with saying just I believe in God, I'm saying this other dumb thing. So that's why I started just saying, no, I do believe in God because I don't want to be a semantic goofball.
Yeah. Greg says that the Nabs were getting people to convert to save their lives. See, and this goes into how I feel. Specifically Christianity, at least in my experience, is a cult. I think the church is a
very
cult.
Culty.
And
every religion.
The
thing. I think the issue is that cults don't have to be intrinsically toxic or helpful.
This is true.
What are the rules? What do they tell you to do?
Organized religion as a whole. I guess it's just my brain goes straight toward Christianity.
Of course.
Because there's just such a... It's just so frustrating. Like these like mission trips that people do, and like instead of giving resources, they give Bibles, and like it's just, it just makes me so frustrated.
Yeah, it's terrible.
And Greg knows on the other side of my dad's family, they're very religious, and it's just it's so weird as like a gay person having an interaction with anyone who's that religious. Like just like my existence is off-putting.
Yeah.
And I would always like feel so nervous like visiting people, and I don't want to say too much on here because obviously it's family, but like I have family on my birth mother's side too. Crazy, like very religious, and as soon as I came out of the closet, it was like a whole problem. I was like a don't ask, don't tell kind of situation where like I could be who I was at my other parents' house, but as long as I was visiting, it was like keep that under wraps. But yeah, the whole like there is one way, and that is the correct way, and we won't be finished as a group until everyone believes that the correct way is the way that we are going.
Yes.
And it's culty.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's very culty, and that's another thing that I definitely appreciated at Landmark is while they could be very adamant and pushy with people sometimes, they also often would say, like, you know, they were also like, it was weird, like they had a distinction between like an authentic no and a not authentic no,
right?
Which I get to extent. Like basically they'd say, like, if you ask someone like, hey, would you like to come do the Landmark Forum, and then that person was like, no thanks, like that was kind of like the authentic no. That it was like, oh wow, that person is really not interested, all right, moving on. Whereas if you said to someone like, hey, would you like to do the Landmark Forum, and their response is like, I'm just kind of busy right now. I don't have a lot of money. I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of expensive, and it was like, which I think pointed to something real of like, if that's your answer, it's like there's something there.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just sort of like an insecurity and an discomfort with saying no, and you know, definitely doing the forum and other courses tends to make people more comfortable with saying no.
Yeah.
It definitely had that impact for me. So it's a weird dichotomy of where, like, I did feel like it got a little too intense for me in terms of the proselytizing. And at the same time, you know, I have to admit that because I said no initially. I said one of those.
I know.
Yeah.
I know.
So he invited me
I'm
at
the
her
one who got
night.
you there.
Yeah, and I was
enrolled Casey.
Yeah, you invited. Well, and also a man at the center who called
That's
me
true.
after the fact, because you invited me, and I was like I loved what I saw that it had a great impact on her, and I was curious and dealing with, you know, my own like depressions and insecurities at the time, but I still, on the night, I was like, no, thank you. And then one person called me from the center a day or two later, and I had a really great conversation with them, and you know, and we kind of talked about the notion of you know, jumping off the cliff and then building your wings on the way down, you know, and which I always have been very into in life. I think it's something you got to do sometimes. I mean, look at it right now, you know, with streaming. We jumped off a cliff. We're learning as we go, building our wings and learning to soar. Yeah, and so he signed me up, and well, I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah, but basically that it's this funny dichotomy that, like, on the one hand, you have to say yes to get, like, you have to be somewhat compliant to get in there, but then it is the teaching makes you better at not being compliant.
Right.
So it's like a weird, like while I did run away from the ILP course, I also give the ILP course credit.
Right.
That, like, something about that experience and those interactions and those conversations and that context got me to a place where I could be like, you know what? Fuck this.
Yeah.
Authentically. And you know, and to their credit, they very big, like, they don't make things wrong, you know, like if I went back to the center, no one would be like, it's the guy who ran away, get him, or you can never come back. Like, they just be like, oh yeah, we get it, cool. You want to do something else? Oh, whatever.
I'm trying to remember the name of that cult that the person who enrolled us in Landmark. I'm trying to remember that her parents.
Oh, yeah. What was that called?
There was like a prayer.
Was it the Oath Keep? No, that's something else. Is that some cop thing?
It was something, but it was another, like, it was for like problem. I feel like I remember her saying it was for like problem teenagers or something. Or problem people, and they would like get them straight over there, and but yeah, I mean, and then it just turned out to be really culty.
Yeah.
Like, I remember it being sort of similar to NXIVM with like the branding and I can't believe NXIVM did human branding.
Yeah.
And people said okay to that because you're so. Raniere. Oh, well, we just watched How To the other night, and
oh my god, well, don't I don't want to spoil anything.
Yeah, you're right. Go watch How To.
Yeah, that's it. Watch How To with John Wilson.
It's on HBO. It's fantastic. It's 10 out of 10.
Oh my god, it is
so good,
special and unique. Truly, yeah.
It's a heartwarming series. Honestly,
it's absolutely heartwarming.
Very funny. Only in New York. Yeah. Does any of this stuff happen?
It's inspiring and enlightening, and I love it.
You said something really great. You were like, he gets into all these situations because he's a curious guy who never says no.
Yeah, that's basically, he's just a yes man. He just rolls with what life throws at him and ends up in all kinds of wacky, amazing situations.
And it's a real show. It's not like a scripted.
Yeah, it's like a comedic documentary video art piece.
There are times when I think this man must be trolling, but I genuinely think that's just who he is.
I like, speaking of God and all, I think like God is guiding that. Like, that guy is meant to do that.
Like
the magic shit that happens on that show, the random stuff he falls into. It's like God is a co-writer on the How To with John Wilson.
It's fantastic, one of my favorites. But anyway, yeah.
Anyway,
Cults.
NXIVM, and unfortunately, it seems that cousin Greg has been programmed by the NXIVM machine, and now he wants to join NXIVM. Don't do it, Greg.
Greg.
They're gonna brand you. They're gonna brand you and make you talk weird. Well, and the other interesting thing about Landmark is, like, you know, it's non-denominational, except I'd say if there's any denomination that it's about, it's capitalism.
Oh yeah, 100%.
That's the other funny thing about cults.
Everything Casey and I have ever spoken about that's problematic, like
at Landmark.
No, ever.
Ever
has come back to capitalism.
You mean problematic in the I mean, like,
in the sense of causing a
problem. a lot of stuff. A lot of
I think
stuff
all
does
of it
trace
comes back to
and
capitalism.
Yeah, and more specifically, I think capitalism as a cultural ethos versus an economic system.
Well, yes,
which I think is an important distinction. It doesn't get talked about enough. That like looking at capitalism in the world, it's like there's capitalism, just like, you know, people having capital,
free market,
and owning the means of production and what have you. Yeah, and then there's capitalism as, you know, basically the cult of the world. And I tend to think that it's the most widely and deeply held belief system on Earth. I mean, no religion has got shit on capitalism, just in terms of you know, adherence and power in the world. Often unexamined, though more examined these days, which is very nice. So Landmark, very, very, very entrepreneur-y, you know, they're very like Shark Tank aesthetic. Very corporate, you know, you're always like in gray offices.
Yeah.
And part of that was like,
I never thought about how corporate it feels.
Oh, it's so corporate. And especially when you got up in the higher things, you need to like do stuff at the center a lot. It's one of the things I hated. I brought it up to them of like, it's so fucking gray in here, you know?
I would think like at the Landmark, it would at the Landmark, it would look like, you know, like the Pixar animation studios.
Sure.
You know?
Well, it's this weird thing of like they want to be accessible, you know, and
so the everyman loves a business.
Oh
cubicle.
yeah. What does every man love more than a gray cubicle? But yeah, they're trying to just be very sort of like vanilla in that sense. But then at the same time, you know, like if you go to a Landmark forum, you're going to see a wide variety of people. You're going to see people with, like, you know, piercings and colored hair, and, you know, you're not just going to see a bunch of people in business suits, like, for sure. Although there will also be people.
Yeah,
in
I know.
business
I
suits.
did the Landmark forum.
Yeah, right. So they're very open to that. But then as you get into the higher stuff, they get very they want you to dress up nice, to be more enrolling, and to bring more people.
Really?
Oh yeah, in ILP there's a dress code. That's part of your commitment.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it's part of
I fully wore pajamas for the whole forum.
Oh yeah, and I think it's a big part of it is like the casual dress how you dress, and we're a bunch of characters and let's meet each other. You know what I mean? But you know, to put it in context in ILP, because it's about training you to be a leader of introductions. That's part of it. It's like if you're going to lead introductions for them, they expect you to not wear pajamas, which I think is fair. But it definitely was a little weird to have this dress code and to have to, like, you know, put on a nice shirt and tie every time, because I'm just so not in. I mean, my issue with that is that, like, I think one of the biggest forces for horror in the world is humanity's tendency to see a person in a nice business suit and think, well, they must be smart and good. They were able to acquire a business suit and put it on their body, so you're great, you're amazing. You know, like, I think that's a really bad thing in our I guess it's in our brains, that we're like, oh, look at how nice his clothes. Because truly, a person in a business suit, all it means is that they have a business suit. All it means is that somehow, either through their own purchasing or maybe they got it as a gift, a business suit came into their life, and now they have slipped it over their hairy, lumpy, fleshy, real body, and now they look like a crisp cloth person.
Yeah.
But it's just cloth. It's just a bunch of tailored cloth, and we make too big a deal out of it. That being said, I've had this conversation with people where I often get the pushback or the counterpoint of like, you know, that when you dress up, you are demonstrating to other people like that you care. Like it's like a demonstration of a sort of, you know, whatever, like.
Yeah,
there's a respect.
It's a respect thing,
you know,
and that's why that's the only argument anyone's ever made that has made me ever feel bad about how I dress in public.
Yes, it's the only good argument that I've heard as well.
Because I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
And I just wear whatever I want all the time, and usually whatever I want is clothes with holes in them.
Yeah.
And that don't actually belong to me. And sorry, my ex. But yeah, I just, you know, the only argument that makes sense is you're not wearing nice clothes because they're nice. You're wearing nice clothes because you want to let someone know you are putting an effort to wear nice clothes.
Yeah, which is great.
Which makes sense.
And as long as we live in a world of, you know, radical economic inequity,
right?
It's kind of there's an unfortunate other side to that sword, other edge, which is that then you have people, you know, who just through bad luck don't have the means to get a suit, and then everyone's like, well, you can't be a respectable professional human being.
Right,
where's your suit?
Right. And then you look at like billionaires who dress like they're coming out of the thrift store.
Right. That's the
because they've
Silicon
reached
Valley.
the level
Right.
of I won capitalism where that doesn't even matter anyway. Because rich people dress really nice.
Yeah.
Really rich people dress like shit.
Yeah.
And I think that
Totally.
that's a very interesting
It is
thing to
a
explore.
fascinating dynamic. And so going back a little more to Doc Antle.
Oh yeah, back to what our background has been the whole time. To our little landmark.
Well, but it goes to show. I mean, yeah, like we love cults. We're so fascinated
Just
with
take that
cults
clip.
and the whole
We love
world.
cults.
Yeah, we love cults. Thumbs up for cults. No, we're very fascinated by cults.
Yeah.
We think cults are super interesting and something that clearly we need to talk about as a species because holy shit, they're just all over the place. And you know, even cult like Elon Musk and all of his super fans, totally a cult. One of the biggest or most successful and most commonly culturally accepted and mainstream, you know.
Well,
and
right, because that's under
cult.
the guise of like,
Capitalism.
I want to be that rich someday.
Yeah, but the weird thing about the Elon Musk
Capitalism.
super fans is they're generally not fantasizing about becoming another Elon Musk. You know, some of them are like, you inspired me to be an entrepreneur and I'm going to start my own company. But a lot of them, what they're into is being the follower to the master. Like what they're fantasizing about is Elon saving them all, and Elon being this you know, super demigod, and that they all get to live under his tender care for the rest of their days. It seems from reading the way these people talk. And yeah, I mean, if anyone's curious, like we think very lowly of Elon Musk.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I used to just think he was like overblown, like there was too much hype. I was like, okay, so he said like, oh, there should be a safe way to spend money online. Like, yeah, genius, fucking amazing. Or like, oh, we should make electric cars that are good.
Yeah.
Wow, what an idea.
Yeah.
And that was before I learned that like he didn't even do that.
No.
that other people did that, and then he bought their companies.
He just had enough money to put his name on it.
And paid them to call him a founder. He's just such a douchebag piece of shit.
And I hate
a brilliant con man.
I hate this whole like needing to be like the everyman's billionaire.
Yeah,
I've said everyman like 10 times during this little chat. But
stop saying everyman.
But-
You're gonna
but
alienate our
he's
audience.
like, I'm the cool one. I'm funny on Twitter. I hosted SNL, and that's just like that doesn't make it different.
No.
That doesn't make it any different
No, it
at
doesn't.
all.
Yeah, labor exploitation is labor exploitation.
Regardless
No matter
of how many times
sick memes you put out there.
What was the new one? I'm just gonna stop doing what I'm doing and become an
He's gonna be
influencer.
an influencer. Please do, Elon. At
Yeah,
least then you wouldn't
would
be
love that.
abusing your employees. When I was a Lyft driver, I picked up a number of SpaceX employees.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, and or also people who had turned down SpaceX to work for other people. Because apparently even back then it was like he was infamous for underpaying people and overworking people till they burned out. Like basically, he would intentionally hire young people straight out of college who were like very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna work at SpaceX, and then he would just pay them shit, work them to the fucking bone, and then when they burned out, fire them. And this is just hearsay from employees of SpaceX who I spoke to.
It's just hearsay from the source.
It's just hearsay from the people who lived it. But that was what they told me. That was what SpaceX employees they did not speak highly of him.
Well, and back to Doc Antle, it's just the same thing on a smaller scale.
Absolutely.
It's all cult. It's the same thing. He had these employees that he was working 1 million hours a day. I don't even know if he was paying them because I know Carol Baskin didn't pay anyone.
I think what they said in the episode we watched last night is that they were paid but not well.
And they had to spend like
they had to live there
1,000 hours a day on the.
They were living on his compound. Crazy. Like you had to move into his little Tiger Disneyland and hang out.
Have I seen Bill Gates jump over a chair?
There we go.
Take a look.
Bring it up. Time for
right.
Casey and Zoe react to Bill Gates jumps over a chair.
Okay, hold on. Let me pull it up and then I'll put it on the...
I mean, this sounds kind of familiar, but we're going to see.
Jumping over a chair. Okay, here we go.
Here we go.
So
bring it up.
Let's take this. And let's do this. Okay. And let's turn this off. Boop. Here we are.
Here we are.
Okay, Bill Gates jumping over a chair like a gangster. I hope this is the right one.
Is it true that you can leap over a chair from a standing position?
It depends on the size of the chair. I'll cheat a little bit.
Yes!
Hey, it was a good jump. The guy can jump.
Yeah, I was expecting him to like eat shit. That was really good. That was great.
I was totally ready for him to kill it.
That was great.
Yeah, because oh my god, it's just like a little boy.
Did you see what I can do?
Like interviewing a little. So I heard.
No, Mouse.
I heard from a little birdie that you can jump over a chair. Oh yeah, I'm the best chair jumper. Yeah. But that's hilarious.
Like
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you for introducing us to that phenomenal accomplishment, Bill Gates. Get this. What is this? Get this out of here.
I don't
know.
No
TED Talks.
No TED Talks.
Or should we? Maybe that can be a new segment. We can react to TED Talks.
Oh yeah. Like really.
Not now. Not
now.
Not now. We're still talking.
Figure out my life.
And well, I was going to say from
Back to Doc Antle.
Yeah, watching Doc Antle last night, we also it got into talking. We were talking about I always hesitate to say cancel culture because I think it's such a bad term that does not serve the conversation well, and it's just too broad, it's too vague. But cancel culture. We started talking about that in relation to this and how. It's just such a trip that Doc Antle was, because to give you context for people who haven't watched, he did a bunch of terrible things. That's the summary.
He's horrible.
Doc Antle's
He's
horrible.
Horrible.
He did a bunch of horrible things throughout his life.
Arguably worse than Carol and Joe.
Oh yeah, it seems like he's like awful.
Yeah.
Until another Netflix series comes out in 6 months, it's like the Doc Antle's exoneration.
Yeah.
It was all a lie. But it seems pretty settled from all the evidence they present. Pretty awful guy. Did a bunch of bad stuff. And it's just amazing how much that he just got away with it.
Of course.
That you can live a life and do all those terrible things. And I think what's happening now with the rise of the internet and this new information technology is like, you can't do that anymore. You can't be as big of a bastard asshole as a Doc Antle or a Bill Cosby or a Harvey Weinstein. It's just not tenable in this day and age, which is good. It's very good. And I really think a lot of what people point to as cancel culture is just that dynamic of like, you can't be a giant piece of shit anymore. Without people finding out at some time, and then when people find out you're a giant piece of shit, they get mad about it,
They
and
get
that
mad at you.
is not a new culture.
No.
Okay, it's always been if it came out that someone was an awful piece of shit who did a bunch of awful things, people got upset always. That is human culture. Nothing weird or new or distinct here. Just generally, people want powerful people to not use their power to do horrible things. And it used to be so much easier to just rack up horrific transgressions.
Absolutely.
And no one ever knew. And we'll never, I mean, like the stuff you see in this Doc Antle series, I'm sure it's just the tip of the iceberg. Like,
oh, I'm sure.
Like this, in the 60s and 70s, the stuff you could do to people and no one would ever know, it's so horrifying. But now, yeah, we've got not just the internet, but, better forensics technology, DNA testing and all these things. It's just never been more difficult to be a serial bastard. And great, I say, wonderful. Bring it all out, and and I don't. It's not like I don't want everyone, banned from. Depending on the intensity of the trans. Obviously, there's some examples of quote unquote cancel culture where I think the consequences were too extreme for the crime. There are examples of that, and we can get into those at some point in all this streaming we do, But generally speaking, I think when people have been canceled, they almost always deserved it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
not to mention that being canceled is not even really a thing. But
when a really famous person gets canceled, they get a little more famous for a small amount of time.
yeah, you get some promotion. I literally just got an email today. I'm still on the Louis C.K. email list.
Oh, yeah.
For LouisCK.com. He just put out a new special for sale.
And Dave Chappelle was able to go to a high school.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
And tell everyone he was better than them.
Yeah, I'm sure Louis C.K. is going to make a fucking fortune off this new special.
Of course.
And yeah, so it's like until I see like truly someone's career be destroyed, I just haven't seen that happen, except for Bill Cosby.
Right. But that was
Harvey Weinstein.
They had to go to jail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, people are. You just can't get away with being a dingus.
Yeah, which is fucking great, and yeah, it's good.
Good stuff.
So anyway, there's some of our thoughts on
some
cults.
of our thoughts on
Anything
cults.
else, Zoe? Any final thoughts on this segment on cults?
Oh God, no. Let's see. Nope.
Nope,
Nothing.
That's got it.
I
Well,
really tried to think of something.
believe
There's
me,
nothing.
this is not the end. We're
We're gonna have way more cult
We're
talk.
so into cults. I'm sure there'll be a new cult documentary on a streaming service every month for the next 5 years.
We're gonna cover all of them. We'll take notes.
We'll just talk a lot about cults.